A very good morning to you students. Welcome back to our chemistry class. As you know that we have completed most of our topics from the chapter 2 acids, bases and salts. Today we are going to learn about salts in detail, children. So coming to the definition of salts, we all know that salts are those substances which are formed by the neutralization of acids and bases. That is the simple definition that we have been learning since our lower classes, right? So there is one more very important and interesting definition of salts, and that is nothing but a salt is a compound formed when the hydrogen of an acid is replaced by a metal like sodium. So what happens when hydrogen of hydrochloric acid is replaced by sodium? It forms sodium chloride, right? And that is nothing but a salt. So these are the compounds which are formed by the substitution of hydrogen of an acid with a metal. It can be sodium, it can be calcium, it can be copper and so on. So what are salts? These are nothing but ionic compounds, children. These are ionic compounds formed when acids and bases react with each other. Now what are ionic compounds? They are nothing but formed by ions. These are composed by positive and negative ions which are held very tightly. They are held very tightly by way of electrostatic forces of attraction. Electrostatic forces of attraction. There will be very strong forces of attraction between the positively charged ions and the negatively charged ions. As you can see here, and they form a compound that is nothing but called as ionic compounds. So as we know that neutralization of acids and bases result in the formation of salt. We have seen formation of sodium chloride where a strong acid, hydrochloric acid, reacts with a strong base, that is sodium hydroxide, and a salt is formed which is nothing but NaCl. Coming to the family or nomenclature of salts, how the salts are named, children. So that salts, as we know that they have acid and bases as their parents, right? So the name of the salt also comes from these acids and bases ions that they have in them. For example, if you see, if the acid is hydrochloric acid, then the salt is called as chloride. They come under the family of chlorides. Example, sodium chloride. Okay, it can be sodium chloride, or depending upon the metal, the name changes. It can be copper chloride, potassium chloride, etc. So if the acid is sulfuric acid, the salt is named as sulfates, children. The family is sulfate family, and examples are copper sulfate, sodium sulfate, potassium sulfate, etc. Okay, children. Now coming to the types of salts, children. So based on the parent molecules or compounds that are forming salt, the salts are divided basically into three categories: neutral salts, acidic salts and basic salts. So as you can see, it's in the name itself, neutral salt. That means the pH value is 7. That means they are neutral substances. And when are they formed? These are formed when a strong acid reacts with a strong base. Can you give an example of a strong acid? Yes, HCl. When acids like HCl or sulfuric acid, H2SO4, when they react with a strong base, name a strong base, it can be sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide. When they react with a strong acid, what we get is nothing but a salt which is neutral in pH. Okay. So here what do we get? The H from HCl and OH from NaOH, they combine and it is released as water, and what we get is NaCl, which is a neutral salt. So we can say that here the strong acid is able to completely neutralize the strong base, or in other way also. A strong base is able to completely neutralize the strong acid, and that is why we get a neutral substance. That is nothing but sodium chloride in this case. Now, can you get an idea about acidic salt? ammonium chloride. Okay, it has a pH value of less than 7 children, somewhere around 6 it has. So it is acidic salt. So now tell me, why is the pH value of this salt less than 7? Why is it acidic? It is because the weak base is unable to neutralize the strong acid completely, and that is the reason why the pH will always be less than 7. In such cases, the pH will be less than 7, that is acidic salt is formed. Now I want you to gather information about the definition of a basic salt and its example. Now you tell me, like, what